Welcome to Ram's Academy. Today, I would like to discuss about the important thing for every technician in the laboratory, that is soldering practice. What is called soldering? Please understand that in electrical, when you want to connect a bulb to a domestic power supply, what we do is the power supply wires are taken to the holder, and the wires are going to be tightened using screws to terminals. The holder will be able to hold the bulb. Therefore, the current will be flowing to the holder terminals and then to the terminals of the bulb. Bulb will, that will glow. But in electronics, we are not connecting through a holder terminals. There is no screws. We are not inserting a wire and tightening a screw like that. We cannot do that, because that has to be, we are not going to have only few terminals only. In electronic equipment, there are number of terminals, number of connections are necessary. Therefore, this type of manually connecting a wire to a particular device in an electronic equipment, all these things are very, very difficult. Therefore, connection by twisting the wire or tightening the screw in the brass socket, like that, all these things are not at all possible. We have to do something else. That is called soldering. Soldering is an important practice for an electronics technician. What is that? When you want to connect two wires, you cannot twist alone. Here you have to make it perfect soldering. The soldering means what? When two things are connected in electronics, low voltages are being used, low currents are being utilized. Therefore, when you are twisting, if the twisting is not happening properly, it may develop a resistance. If you develop a resistance, there may be a drop, IR drop will be there. Therefore, when you are twisting two wires, if you make it to zero resistance, the drop is not going to be there. IR drop is zero. Therefore, perfect soldering. From this we understand that perfect connection has to be there, not by twisting the wire. We have to do something else. We have to make it bonding. We have to connect using third element. We have to use a third element so that the resistors are bonded properly, creating zero resistance contact, and also giving some tension effect. That is, simply cannot be brought down. The connection cannot be broken down simply by just pulling. That way, we have to make the contacts of the two things exactly creating 0 ohms resistance and also producing higher intact things from being disconnected by force. Therefore, soldering is a very good relief for that. What is soldering? That is, when you want to connect two things, we have to use a third metal, and accordingly we should connect. What is the metal we are using here in soldering? We are going to use solder wire, because solder wire, lead is the solder. The lead is a metal, but it has got the lowest melting temperature. Therefore, what we do when we want to connect two things in a junction, we apply the low melting temperature material, lead, and then try to make wherever holes are there in between these two metals, and that will go inside and fill it up. Like that, once when it is molten, it will go inside and fill it up. When it becomes when because of temperature, during cold condition, when it is brought back to room temperature, binding will occur. Therefore, you cannot detach two wires after lead soldering. How we are doing all these things? We are doing with a perfect electrical equipment that is called soldering iron. What is a soldering iron? Soldering iron is nothing but an iron which is containing supposed to work at 220 volts AC, and within that there is going to be a thermal element in the sense it is made of nichrome wire, and then it will be highly insulated properly within a metallic container, and within that there is going to be a copper rod. Within that there is a copper rod is being kept over there. When copper rod is inserted within the element, heating element of a soldering iron, when you apply the voltage, heating element will heat the copper wire, one end of the copper rod, and then the other end also will get heated. When you come to the other end, the tip, the maximum temperature will be available. Whatever the temperature is created within the soldering iron, because of the driving of the AC current through the thermal coil, the tip will get heated. By that way, when the tip is getting heated, you can apply the solder wire. Actually, the solder wire consists of lead only, but within that, a rod, it is being manufactured as a thread. Either of 1 mm dia or 0.5 mm dia, like that. Within that, there is going to be one more core centrally within the cylindrical hole. The flux is being inserted. What is a flux? Flux is nothing but a chemical compound which is used for cleaning the surface of the two metals which are to be joined. Therefore, the flux will be within the core of the solder wire, and when this solder wire is brought to the tip of the soldering iron, the solder wire will melt. When it melts, automatically you can apply it to anywhere, wherever you want bonding. Therefore, as I said, when two things are to be simply connected, you just bring both the things together and then try to keep your tip of the soldering iron very near to that and try to apply the solder wire to the tip of the things. Ultimately, it is going to, when you apply the tip, that will be at the center of the two contacts to be connected, and also the tip of the soldering iron. Ultimately, that is going to melt further, and then it will be joining these two contacts. It will flow within wherever gap is available. The molten lead is going to flow within that. Once you remove soldering iron, automatically the thing is going to be properly brought back to the room temperature, and perfect contact has been made between these two metals. Therefore, this is the actual procedure for the soldering. For soldering, we need contacts to be joined, and then we need a soldering iron, and also the perfect solder wire. There is going to be a 60-40, 80-20, like that, a combination of tin and lead. Like that, the things are going to be joined together for making a perfect joint in the soldering practice. Sometimes, when you are soldering two things which are having more area, if you want to solder that, you need more heat. For that, there are a lot of soldering irons available with the wattages of 10 watts, 20 watts, 60 watts, 100 watts, 500 watts. A lot of irons are available. Accordingly, we can use it for a particular application. Then, soldering is not meant for soldering only two contacts. There are a lot of things available. When you come to electronics, the devices are so many. Devices are nothing but there are going to be diodes, there are going to be resistors, there are going to be capacitors, there are going to be transformers, there are going to be integrated circuits, there are going to be the things jointers, lug strips. Like that, lot of components are available for electronic soldering. Therefore, accordingly, we have to do that. Okay, fine. These are the things we can be joined together. Fine. Coming to interconnection of the many components for an electronic application, all these things cannot be externally joined together. All resistor, condenser, transistor, everything cannot be connected together by joining using wires. They have to be connected. They are separated by a distance. But how to? We cannot use wire. Then lot of wires have to be used. It will become a confusing circuit diagram then. Nothing can be followed to find out what is what, like that. Therefore, soldering can be used in a particular fashion in which all the components can be mounted in a soldering PCB. What is a PCB? PCB is nothing but a medium. It is made of ebonite and with a copper clad at the bottom, and copper is running between points where we want connections. It is a different technology how to create, how to manufacture soldering PCB and all. There are PCBs with simple copper clad sheet, single side PCB, double side PCB, multi-layer PCB, like that so many things are there. But components can be, now I am referring to a single side PCB only, not a double side. It's a single side PCB. The components are at one side and copper connections are connected in another side. For another side making contact, we are using soldering iron. Therefore, within this PCB, we are going to insert each and every component, what I referred like diode, resistor, condenser and 3-pin IC, 16-pin IC, 3-pin transistors and high power transistors, and so many things can be inserted from the ebonite side to the copper clad side. So when you inserted, and you can use these soldering iron, as I said, when you want to create a contact between the copper clad layer and the components terminal, both have to be inserted properly. The length of the component has to be cut down, and then soldering iron can be used to apply lead, and then try to put the lead in between the copper clad and the component terminal and the soldering iron. Then in the condition that will melt and join together. Like that, all the component leads are supposed to be connected to the copper clad side using the soldering iron. So when you are applying the lead, try to heat it to the maximum temperature. Normally lead will melt at 200 degrees centigrade. Therefore apply this thing, bring it to molten state, and then leave the thing. You don't apply solder wire to the soldering tip and then take it to the contact point. But without solder, take the tip of the soldering iron to the contact point to which contact has to be made, and then heat that base and then put your lead wire. Then only the lead wire will melt and join both the members, like copper clad as well as this thing. Okay, fine.